be without fear is in the now. I'm learning how. Fast life, no thanks, no, I'm doing just fine. One foot.
The other thing that I ask people to do is to start picking three, again, my lucky number is three alternative actions. It could be going for a walk, calling a friend, having a bath, meditating, breathing, whatever it is. Pick three actions so that whenever you're feeling that emotion, whether it's anxiety or whether it's sadness or whether it's anger, you pick one of these three and you give them a go. Because what I want to do is, you don't want what tends to happen a lot of the times, like we programmed our brain, our action is that, right, whenever I'm feeling a specific emotion, you resort to the act of eating. We want to break that somehow. So one is being conscious that it's happening. Number two is actually understanding what triggers it. And number three is just picking an alternative action and sticking to whatever works for you. So for some people, meditation doesn't work, maybe actually getting out of the house. The other thing, again, this is also what some of my clients have done, are putting little nudges. I know it sounds silly, but if you have a sticky note, put it on the inside of your pantry or even on the fridge, so that every time you're mindlessly walking around and opening, it's just a little nudge to ask you, hey, are you hungry? And then it kind of stops you in your tracks for just that one split second, and then you go, actually, no, maybe I'll go for something else. But, or resort to your, I have a client that says, right, resort to your alternative action, step away from the pantry, whatever it is. But I think, as I said, you need to figure out what works for you. The other thing that has helped some people is sticking to a routine or keeping with the routine before lockdown somehow. That has helped quite a lot of my clients, where they stick to their regular timings, regular meals, and in a way just replicating what you've done before lockdown times. So setting routine or alternative actions, again, pick what's right for you. The other thing that I get people to actually, again, to understand their behaviors a little bit more. So why you eat the way you eat is, and this is maybe an exercise that I can send via email, or you can email to everyone else, is it's kind of the first step to mindfulness around eating. So it's asking yourself specific questions related to eating. Why do you eat? When do you eat? How do you eat? How much? And where does your energy go afterwards? Once you start answering all these questions, it gives you an idea if emotional eating is an issue or not. So if you notice a specific emotion pop up in the answers quite frequently, then this is something that we need to address. So this is an exercise that I get actually most of my clients to do as a first step to address the mindfulness around eating. The other thing is to assess whether you need a snack, or you need, do I need that extra snack, or do I not need any snacks? Do I just need those 3 meals a day? Is really looking at how hungry you are before meals and how full you are after meals. And this is, again, another exercise that I get my clients to do, to assess whether, okay, that previous meal was filling enough and I don't feel hungry up until dinner time. But if you are getting to a point where you're starving, then you potentially might need a snack 2 hours beforehand. So this is how we can also set structure. A good way to do it, and again, I can write this down in one of the emails, is that scale. So before and after meals, think 0 is starving, like I'm hangry, and think of 10 as being I'm absolutely stuffed, food coma approaching. Before meals, you should be around a 3 to 4, meaning you have to have that sensation of I'm ready to eat. I'm not starving, but I'm ready to eat. And then after meals, you should have that sensation of I am satisfied. So it's around a 7 to 8. So this is also one way that you can start assessing whether your current structure, your current portions, etc., is working well for you. Because a lot of the times we've just become so disconnected with our internal body cues. Either some people are following meal plans or whatever it is. But it's also just taking that one step further and actually just listening to your body. Again, I can't hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, I muted myself because I didn't want to make a noise. How long before going to sleep should one stop eating?
As a general guide, I always work with the 2 to 3 hours. So 2 to 3 hours before bedtime should be the last meal. And also this is a good guide for people who do, let's say, different shift work, because some people say, do we stop eating before 8 p.m.? For the general public, again, another way to go by it is to allow your body to have a 12 to 14 hour overnight fast. So these are two different ways that you can look at it.
And talking about anxiety also, I know that if I eat very heavily or if I drink certain wines or alcohols, then I really don't sleep well. I have nightmares, and then I wake up in the morning not feeling well and even more anxious. So would you recommend in these times of uncertainties to maybe at night keep it lighter, or certain
Again,
foods?
I was going to say, look at, again, heavy meals. So some people like yourself would react quite badly, but it's also because if you have a really heavy meal, it takes much, much longer to digest. So lighter meals, yes. And also, given that we're more sedentary, and this is, again, if we want to talk about that weight, although I don't want people to start obsessing about weight at the moment. It's not the time. Don't worry about scales. It's absolutely fine for our weight to fluctuate. Our weight is never going to be static for the rest of our lives. But what's really important is, again, keeping it light in the evenings if there's not so much movement, and we can talk about that plate division in a bit more detail. But alcohol, one thing that has definitely gone up with a lot of my clients, including I find myself doing that, is alcohol consumption. Everyone's been placing their orders of wines and beers, before the lockdown. I know my husband was really proud. He stocked up our basement with all the wines and Prosecco. But a lot of people are resorting to alcohol as a way to wind down. Alcohol can impact your immune system and will affect the quality of your sleep. So as a general guide, again, with or without COVID, try to be mindful of how much you're consuming. If you are using alcohol as a coping mechanism, potentially that's not the best way to go around it. The other thing is, try to be creative with a lot of these non-alcoholic drinks. I mean, we also have non-alcoholic beer. There's a drink that I really like. Again, I'm not promoting anything at all, but kukumis. It has a cucumber, lavender flavor. I absolutely love that drink. Making a lot of herbal sparkling water. So just adding some herbs to your water, or sparkling fizzy drinks. So there's a lot of things that you can do that, can, sexify your beverages a little bit, and not just keep it to, the alcohol or the cocktails. But as I said, including myself, I have noticed that I am drinking more wine by the end of the day. I am drinking a little bit more than what I'm used to. For people who really like structure and numbers, if you want to, set an allowance of how much you should be drinking per week, it's around 4 standard drinks. And by standard, I mean not filling up your wine, a glass to the top of the rim.
The Swiss measurements. The one.
Swiss. Again, keep it to Swiss measurements, to the T. So think of that, again, 4 standard drinks, and you cannot save up your allowance in the following week. You snooze, you lose. You know what I mean? Which a lot of my clients have done in the past.
It's not retroactive.
No. So just remind yourself, why am I drinking too much because of XYZ? Is it, I know barbecue season again is coming up as well. People tend to consume more, but now that we're confined. So just take that one step further and asking yourself, why is that changing? Why am I drinking more?
So what are some of the common questions or issues that you've been receiving? And because I'm sure that all of us probably have the same questions, other than the ones that you've already addressed.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've spoken about stress eating. The other thing is about garlic and turmeric, specific miracle foods. Again, there's absolutely no research whatsoever that you need to consume these in large amounts. There's a nice meme going around that COVID is not a vampire, so you don't have to really, keep swallowing cloves of garlic, which people actually have been doing and can be dangerous. I think you've experienced an episode.
I almost choked, yes, and I'm glad my husband was in the house that morning to save my life. But but yeah, funny enough, I was talking to a friend of mine in New York, and she was saying that of all the things that are missing in the supermarket are ginger and garlic.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, even with things like I love, again, COVID aside, even with that, I love making a ginger and turmeric tea. I do enjoy it. It's my comfort drink in the evenings. It calms me down. But yes, again, maybe the science doesn't say in terms of human studies, they are considered anti-inflammatory in a way, but also a lot of your herbs and spices, again, going back to gut health, which we addressed in the beginning, your gut bugs love herbs and spices. So this is why, try to keep it diversified, as diverse as possible, and not neglecting your herbs and spices as well. Garlic, again, looking at the research, when you start reading about these individual nutrients, garlic, turmeric, what else is ginger, I don't know, specific type of mushrooms, etc. Whenever someone mentions science, you need to ask, hold on, is this been done in a lab, so like in test tubes, or has it been done on animals, or do we actually have human studies? So this is how you can start to assess the quality of these studies. Also, you need to be careful that even though these are natural supplements, and some of them come in a pill form, they can be harmful. One of the biggest examples is green tea, and there were these green tea pills. They can actually cause liver damage. And there was a lot of, it made the headlines for many, many years. So even as I said, be aware of these supplements that even though they're natural, doesn't mean they're 100% safe because of the dosage. The dosage can be quite high.
Okay. And so I know that one of the questions that you were asked was, and I think a lot of us feel it, is, we have to cook morning, lunch, dinner, especially if you and if you have kids, and then it becomes quite work intensive and also boring because, you can only be so creative, right? Every day. So what is one of your recommendations to sexify it?
To sexify it. Look, to be honest with you, even as a dietitian, I am getting sick and tired of cooking 3 meals a day. We've had, again, it's absolutely fine to rely on frozen food. Again, be strategic with the types of frozen meals that you buy as well, but there's absolutely no shame in having those. One thing that helps, again, in terms of meal prepping is putting a theme. So let's say from Monday to Friday. So for us, Fridays is takeout. We've been socially isolating with our neighbors, so we're 4 adults and 2 kids. And Friday nights is our fiesta. So tonight is Mexican. We've ordered, and we Friday night's takeout night. No one wants to cook. Set themes to your days. So for example, Monday can be vegetarian, Tuesday can be fish, Wednesday can be a pasta dish. And based on your theme, choose 2 or 3 recipes. So again, it requires a little bit of planning, but again, we have time. Do you know what I mean? And maybe do it on a Sunday. But you also, again, given right now with shopping and the availability, look at what you have available first. And try to start, looking at relevant recipes. So look at what you have, use up your fresh produce first, then move to your frozen goods and then place an order. Or now I know there's a huge waiting list for online orders as well.
Oh, really?
So I think everywhere. So we haven't, we've only been out twice for certain essentials. To get from the store, but I've been quite strategic with placing my orders 2-3 weeks in advance. So I already have 3 orders in the, in the
queue. Yeah.
In the queue. But I find, again, setting themes, that's also helped me. And if you've got kids, getting them involved, it might get messy, which is fine. I think this whole concept of having a clean house when you've got kids around goes completely out the window. I don't know if anyone's got kids, but keeping it, as I said, keep it exciting, and make a little bit of an effort, even if you live alone. And this is something that, again, I when I work with a lot of my clients who live alone, it is a form of self-care to cook for yourself. So one thing that I've actually asked some of my clients to do, once a week, cook a 3-course meal for yourself. It can be Friday night, it can be Saturday, but cook a 3-course meal and maybe have a date with someone, a virtual dinner date. But remember that you are worth it. You are worth that time, because a lot of people would say, what's the point? I only like cooking for people or cooking for someone else. I was like, well, shouldn't you be a priority? Or shouldn't you care for yourself as well? So this is something that I would tell everyone to do. Take the time to cook for yourself.
Exactly. That's what I
And
say.
if you have leftovers, fantastic. You
Even
don't have to
better.
think of cooking for the next 2 days.
That's right. In our household, though, usually we don't have leftovers. Very rarely. We're like fish. We expand with the size of our bowl, So the more food, But it's true that, to go back to what you were saying in the beginning, treating yourself is really important. And if you add colors to your plate and different textures and different smells, and it makes it much more fun. And and then maybe adding a nice glass of something that's colorful, and then having music with it, then it becomes an experience that you can really appreciate, whether you're alone or virtually, or with partners. And I think it's essential. So you don't, we need to create new routines. Anyways, that routine, I think, is one that should stay, because we're always on the go. So it's really important to just sit down and make it an experience when we eat. And
the other thing that I ask people to do as well, again, talking about eating and eating behaviors, eat without distractions. I'm sure everyone's been eating with either on their laptop, at their desk, especially when you've got the home office going. Take a break and step away from the desk, step away from the laptop, put some music on, try to savor your meal and try to make that last for about 15 to 20 minutes. It is hard, but this is one step to being a little bit more conscious and mindful of your eating habits and your eating choices.
True. Yeah. Eating fast. I eat very fast, and it's important to take your time and really chew.
To slow down.
Also, and you don't eat as much actually when you eat slowly.
Yep. It takes, as I said, slowing down. So a lot of people who are fast eaters tend to eat a little bit more than what their body actually needs. So even just taking it just one step down might help with, let's say, portion control.
Great. Thank you. Should we move on to the questions and comments?
Yes.
Or do you have more you'd like to share?
If anyone else, we can address the questions.
Do you want me to read the ones that were sent to me privately that you don't see? Hold on. So,
go for it.
Crystal, how should the supplements like vitamin D be taken?
I've got it here. Yeah.
You have it also? Okay.
So vitamin D, you can either take them in pill form or in drops form, the Topfen basically that you can get. Again, vitamin D is, if your stores are okay, I wouldn't even recommend a vitamin D supplement, because it is one of these supplements that is stored in your liver. So if in excess, so that's like your fat soluble vitamins. So for example, let's talk about B vitamins or vitamin C. These are water soluble, meaning your body's only going to use up what it needs, and then you're going to wee it out. With your fat soluble vitamins, so things like your vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, if you have them in excess, that can cause a bit of damage. So this is why I always say, just make sure before you supplement, you know what your levels are. If you tend to be vitamin deficient anyway, so a lot of people with a long history of vitamin D deficiency, you would know if you are or not. If you have a history of that, then your doctor would prescribe the specific dosage that you need for you. Generally, the one that you can get off the shelf are the maintenance dose. So I think it's 4,000 international units. I think the common drops that you can get here in Switzerland, and it's maybe one drop 4 to 5 days a week. But again, the dosage really depends on your levels. Now, in pill form, there are two different types of vitamin D. So there's D2 and D3. D3 is the form that our bodies, like the most per se, or absorb better than D2. And then I think part of the question I heard that you cannot drink coffee for at least an hour. There's not concrete evidence to say if caffeine or coffee per se can interfere in the absorption of vitamin D, but I would keep it separate generally.
Good. Thank you. What else? Would anyone want to address the question or comments directly? Raise your hand if you do.
And we can unmute people.
Yeah, anyone? Yeah, Crystal?
Right.
Go ahead, unmute. Go ahead, Crystal.
So my doctor basically prescribed me dose like from Sandoz.
Yeah, D3.
So it's a little bit difficult with the whole situation to go actually to the doctor and see now, the levels of vitamin D that I have now. Because I will go just.
But if your doctor, I was going to say, if your GP, if your doctor has prescribed you, they know the history, they know your history, so that's absolutely fine. So whatever, I would still go by what your doctor has recommended.
Good. I will try that, because I bought an extra package since he told me people that are more dark skinned, they need more vitamin D.
Yeah.
As you told me, but I don't know if it's actually the case. So
it is true because we don't. I mean, I've always been vitamin D deficient, even though I'm always in the sun per se. But generally during the winter months, so basically from November, because I know November is the darkest month in Zurich. So generally from November up until, what are we now, March, April-ish, or I would say around March. And then I would stop and then get your levels checked to see if you need to continue or not.
okay, I will wait. Thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Sandra, would you like to ask Sandra your question?
I'm looking at, there's a question around lentils. What is the
Yes,
difference?
that's Sandra. I'm going to
lentils?
unmute
Okay.
you. Here you go, Sandra. Go ahead.
Hi. So there are different lentils, the green, the red, the yellow, the brown.
Yep.
And I don't know if there is even some others. I don't know. Purple. So I just heard, they're different. They differ. Some are like easy to digest, and the others, I don't know what exactly is the difference.
So basically, when you're talking about your legumes in general, your beans, your lentils, the different types of lentils, they have these fermentable sugars in them called FODMAPs. And what these fermentable sugars do is they cause your intestines to absorb so much liquid and gas, causing the discomfort, so causing the cramps, the bloating, sometimes irregular bowel movements. So for example, for some people, green lentils is better tolerated than red lentils because of the different levels of these fermentable sugars in them. Also, the tinned varieties have less of these fermentable sugars than having them from scratch, soaking them, boiling them, etc. But so for example, green lentils, I would add on the list. I have IBS, easily tolerated. Things like chickpeas as well. Chickpeas are quite easily tolerated. Red lentils are a little bit more uncomfortable for some people. What else have we got on there? I think, were there other types
brown,
of
yellow?
Brown lentils, yellow and red, I think are on the same page per se. Brown and green again fall together in that same category. So easier tolerated. Yeah, I think these are the colors that I can think about.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Hold on, let me see if we have anything else here. What else? You were also, Sandra, you were asking something about food and hormones for pre-menopause and menopause, right? Is that right, Sandra?
Yeah, maybe I was going to say,
yes,
maybe you can ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there specific foods for pre and look, again, I'm not an expert when it comes to hormones. As I said, I don't like advising out of my scope of specialty, although a lot of people do. Just because you're a dietitian or a nutritionist doesn't make you always an expert in everything. But what we do know is there is a lot of misinformation around specific foods that you would cut out pre or post menopause, or what they or foods that can affect your hormone levels, etc. These are actually quite highly individualized, and they really go by your blood work and your hormone levels. So one of the biggest myths as well is like soy has come up multiple times in terms of how it impacts hormones because it includes things like your phytoestrogens. I don't know if you're familiar with these. So basically what we're looking at is actually soy can reduce menopause symptoms in a lot of women. And there's actually absolutely no evidence, despite what a lot of people have been saying, to link soy consumption to breast cancer in women. If anything, there's no causality, so it doesn't cause it. Otherwise, there's a protective effect. So this is right now where the studies currently stand in terms of that. And this is as far as I said, I don't, it's not an area of mine that I specialize in. So I don't like, as I said, I don't like meddling in things I don't specialize in.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other comments or questions? Or Melanie? Hold on. Here's Melanie from Sweden.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
So we've got Sandra, we've got Sweden, we've got UK, we have London, we have Istanbul, we have Amsterdam. Yes, and London, did I say? Yes. Pretty nice group.
International.
Yeah. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, so I have a question. I'm wondering because I read a lot about the medical medium, and I was wondering what your opinion on his things are.
I'm just going to nod and smile. That is my answer. Let's just keep it to that. I'm just going to be very straightforward. Let's just keep it to that. No, again, you need to be, let's just put it this way. If someone gets, I'm not against people who are spiritual, but to get scientific facts from someone who gets their facts from, again, spirits, medical facts, I would approach that with a very big question mark. The other thing, I mean, I'm actually blocked by the medical medium, funny enough, because I am, as I said, I'm a skeptic, and I'm very vocal, and I will call out, excuse the French, bullshit when I see it, purely because you do not, again, I don't know how many of you know my background, but because I'm a clinical dietitian, so a lot of my work revolved in hospitals. I worked on cancer wards, I worked in oncology. What I'm seeing right now is when you start, so the medical medium, let's say the celery juice, I'm just going to give this as an example as to why I'm totally against such advice. Celery juice, massive, massive hype. Everyone's been obsessed with it. Everyone's been juicing. Actually, it causes a lot of people to bloat, to run to the loo. It's not the best thing for your gut health. But what's happened is that a lot of people, let's say with cancer, people who are vulnerable, people, let's take two groups, people with autoimmune disorders and people with cancer, oncology. These two groups are the ones that so-called medicine failed them because we don't have the answers, which is true. Medicine is never going to have the answers to everything. This is why we have science, this is why we have research. Then comes a whole bunch of people coming saying, we have the answers, we can cure you. Enter celery juice. Now, to give you an example, I had a client whose friend, I can't remember what type of cancer that she has, but read the medical medium and decided to ditch chemotherapy and use celery juice because claims it detoxes her body and can protect her or improve her cancer prognosis, etc. So she started pooping black. So she said her impression was, oh my God, my body's actually detoxing. Look at all the black stuff that's coming out. So celery juice is doing its work. Actually, black poop is an indicator of internal bleeding. So what's happened is that a side effect of ditching chemotherapy and the celery juice wasn't doing anything, but she ended up having internal bleeding. And this is one thing, I asked her to actually rush to emergency because of that. So you have to be very, very careful with where you get your resources from. My take or my approach, we are in a society right now, or in our world has gone into two extremes. We've gone into the extremes of either being too medical or relying on the medication, over medicating, etc., or completely ditching medicine and going to the other end of the extreme, which is the alternative or the other side of the spectrum. What we need to realize is both worlds can coexist at the same exact time. I've worked on oncology and I've seen the impact on how both worlds can coexist together. I've worked with people with autoimmune disorders as well in the past, and I've seen how both worlds can coexist together. But the issue is, yes, there are flaws in the medical system, but that doesn't mean that the other end of the spectrum has all the answers. And this is what's happening. So this whole movement was created because of these two subgroups of people who are extremely vulnerable and will do anything. You want to live. A lot of people do want to live. And if you've lost all hope, and if medicine so-called, failed you, you are going to try everything and anything. So for me, I have an issue with people taking advantage of people's, I'm not going to say ignorance, but not knowing enough, being quite vulnerable, being quite fearful. And this is also what we're seeing now with COVID. So that ends my rant in terms of anyone that comes in. Yeah.
I think to summarize, you have to use your brain and not, you can combine both. It's like Steve Jobs, right? I think he completely quit everything and he went straight into something completely natural, but you just don't know. Yeah. But I think it's really, we have both to serve us. So we have to use everything that's given from nature, from science, and your own connection to your own body, and just do the right thing. You can't just ditch one for the other. or extremes, I think, you know.
I mean, look at us now, and this is, again, no offense to anyone. I am quite strongly opinionated around vaccinations and so on. But look at us now. We don't have a vaccine for COVID, and we're all desperate for it. And look at how many people it's killing at the moment. So I think at the end of the day, there really is a place for both worlds to coexist. And this is how I grew up. I grew up in a very medically orientated family, but my father, who's a gastroenterologist, has his own Chinese medicine doctor that he goes to. So you can strike that balance. But again, you need to be very careful with where you get your resources from. Social media has become extremely toxic. Kardashians are on it. I don't know. Don't get me started on Gwyneth Paltrow. That's another kind of topic for discussion. But be critical. Really be critical. But also the issue that we're having, even if someone has a title next to their name, even if they have an MD next to their name, again, question that. I question a lot of dietitians as well. I know of qualified dietitians that promote fat, and I call them out. So it's just unfortunate that our world has, especially within this world, it's hard to regulate.
Absolutely. And like you said, just because there's a title doesn't mean they know anything. And I mean, from personal experience, I was failed quite a few times by really supposedly good doctors, and because they were just shooting in the dark. They had no idea what they're doing, and in the end made me even more sick. So you just have to really know your source, know your body, and you know what, if you like salad juice and makes you feel good, then have it, but doesn't mean that you have to stop all the other stuff, right? You do it because you like the taste, and you do it because it makes you feel good in some ways, and but also do your research and do the things that are that are necessary for you. And I think that's where it's at. And social media for sure. Yeah, that's fat, and facts, two different things. And we have too many data, too much going on around. So it's really difficult for a normal person to be able to decipher between what's real and not, what is good for you and what it's not. Like you were even saying with beans, some people react well to them, some people don't, and it's just, it's really...
It's a little bit of common sense every now and then.
Exactly.
But sometimes people need reminding.
Can you hear me? Because I just got a note saying that my connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me well and see me well? Yeah, okay. Yulia, totally agree with everything Sandra says, especially being careful about info on the internet. Thank you. And also about supporting good gut bugs. I'm supporting mine with balanced diet, including homemade yogurt and sauerkraut.
Awesome. Well done.
Fully agree. It's important to question certain things. What else? Any other questions that I missed or comments that anyone would like to address? Melanie? Are we okay with going past a little bit? Sandra, are you okay? It's 7.
I was going to say, I've got about 5 minutes. So
okay.
I'm happy to hang around.
Let's wrap it up. Go ahead.
Just a final question. I have a nephew who is 3 years old and he's ill in leukemia. And I'm just wondering if there's anything specific in terms of his diet or anything that we should try and get him to eat that would help his recovery.
So generally, again, I used to work in pediatrics a very, very long time, and that's a very specific subgroup of people. I don't know how it is over there, but generally on the oncology ward, you will have pediatric dietitians. And again, I don't know how it is like, but when I worked in the children's hospital a very long time ago, we were there to help. Again, it's more of a supportive to whatever the management plan or the treatment plan is at the moment. What's really important, especially during oncology time, is to prevent malnutrition. So to prevent your nephew from being malnourished. So it's just making sure that his energy levels, his calorie needs, his macros and his micros are all met. And this is where a dietitian can come into play. I think, where are you based again?
She's in, hold on, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
In Stockholm.
In Stockholm. You might have, I don't know if they're diabetes, you might have clinical nutritionists. So every hospital should have clinical nutritionists on there, especially on the oncology ward. Again, this is me. over a decade ago working in Australia. I was in oncology, children's hospital. You have the dietetics department there. So you can ask for a request to help assess, or what else can you do to support him throughout his treatment.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
So yeah, hold on. So thank you so much, Sandra, for your time. And I mean, it was really helpful, and I got a lot of answers to questions that I personally had. So I'm sure that a lot of us here also got a lot out of it. And for your time and your knowledge and expertise, really, again, anyways, I'm not surprised.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And if, as I said, if you guys have even more questions, I'm quite active now on Instagram, as much as I don't like to be on social media. But what we also do is you can always just drop an email for any kind of burning questions. More than happy to help. I'll also share the documents, or some interesting documents maybe that I find that cover what we've spoken about today to Ayan, and then she can pass it on to everyone. Whether it's certain links to,
your website also, Nutrition A to Z, right?
Yeah, so it's nutrition-az.com. We're updated, so we're hopefully launching the new website soon. Let's see. The website agency was in quarantine for a while, so that's fun. But yeah, as I said, just kind of last word of advice, just don't get your information from social media. And also, especially around COVID time, go by what the WHO is recommending. The WHO, the CDC, and avoid, I mean, sometimes even with government guidelines, there's also quite sometimes they're a little bit behind, or they're a little slow. So just go by the big authorities right now in terms of what you should be doing around COVID, because there's a lot of misinformation around, for example, washing fruits and vegetables. What do we need to do? So you can get a lot there. They have a lot of good resources there.
Thank you. And also, just as a final note, you don't need to be in, if you have questions, or if you want consultations with Sandra, you don't need to be in the same room. We can also consult.
Our virtual clinic is open. Yeah, I was going to our virtual clinic's been open for a while. I mean, we've always consulted online, but now officially we've moved online in our own private practice in our virtual clinic. But yeah, you can always, if you need the extra support, we're more than happy to offer that.
Great, thank you. And
my favorite way to be without fear is in the now. I'm learning how.